Okay, we got a lot of topics that we're going to be covering today. Let me stick them in the chat here so everyone sees where we're going to be. Okay. Today's topics. All right, let me just pin that and we'll be ready to go. Perfect. Okay. Great. So we're going to be doing a lot of kind of fun things today. We're going to be looking at card of the day and what that means. And as I've mentioned before, the card of the day is not something that is randomly drawn by a tarot reader or something that is through a process that is on the same line as synchronicity or sort of the random nature of a usual process, like shuffling or whatever various method that you use. It's actually a fixed card that is derived from the day that you're born, very similar to your astrological sign and some other very specific things like your rising sign and these things. So your card is something that follows you throughout your life, and we'll be talking about that, how to find it, practically how to use that information. What do you do with your birth card, and how that works with the card of the day to give you a very good technique and method for doing your own little mini horoscopes. Using that method is very effective, and I think it's one that you'll like. We're also going to be covering the daily message of today. This is sort of a group overall look at where we are, circumstances right now in the world, and how can we maybe better weather that by understanding the direction that it's taking and giving us a little more of a direct participation in the process, right? And then we're going to be doing tarot for fur babies. That's readings for animals. Now, I do a general reading for one pet and for multiple pets. So if you're the one pet family, we have the one reading that's for you, and then multiple pets, there'll be a separate reading for that. So a lot of fun, though. I love doing that because you can really learn a lot about what they're really thinking. Birthday, if today's your birthday, or actually this is for tomorrow, so if your birthday is the 11th of August, and then we're going to be looking at some messages for you. And the Mind, Body, Soul reading, that's really great. That's another sort of group message, but what we're looking at doing is taking a look at kind of karmically connections, relationships, and this type of thing, and what is the overall environment energetically, what is helping or hurting certain aspects of that. So we'll look at that as well. Some lessons in this week. There's some heavy stuff and there's some really, really light and fun stuff, which is really good. Finding your birth card, which I referred to when we talked about the daily message. Your birth card is something that is dependent upon the day that you're born, and so you can find that card for today or for your birthday or somebody else's birthday, the formation of a company, the founding of a country. There's a lot of different uses for that, both astrologically and otherwise as part of your divinatory process. So that's a lot of fun. And then in the news, now this is an interesting thing. There's a lot of things to talk about going on in the world right now, and I had considered a few topics, and things are so dynamic right now in the world that it's hard to keep up and sort of look at some of the topics that we'll talk about. My goal is to do the readings live, so there's no prepared readings or interpretations or anything like that. It would be live, but maybe as a community we'll decide what we look into and what's going on in the world that we want to kind of gain some insight about. So that'll be coming up too, and it's going to be a really fun night. As well as the live readings, I'm kind of kicking around a couple of ways to make that work, and I'm not 100% sure if it's going to actually together. The number will be up on the screen, and if you'd like to have a reading live on the air, we can do a full spread, Celtic Cross, the astrological houses, which is a 12-card reading to look at each individual house. And it's a really good sort of karmic snapshot. Whenever I do deeper readings for clients, I start with that because that gives me a really detailed picture of where they are. And what their energies were at the formation of their current incarnation. And so that snapshot is a really effective way to kind of moving forward know, here's the lens that I should view how I behave, act, decisions I make, the types of people I prefer to keep in my life, and these kind of things kind of make a lot more sense when you've got that blueprint. The What If is a really good reading as well, which is kind of looking at the circumstances of a certain decision, and if I went this direction, what would happen? If I went that direction, what would happen? If you did nothing, where would it wind up? And what is the best action for you to take? So it's a really good sort of 4-part reading. About 15 cards, 20 minutes to a half an hour to on the low end to kind of get through some of the intricate portions of that reading. That's a really good one. We can do that on air as well. But that said, let me jump over to today's topics. And while we're waiting for the stream to kind of build up, I think we should start with the card of the day. And what the card of the day is, like I had mentioned, this is not something that is chosen through the normal synchronistic random nature of a typical card being chosen by a reader. This card is determined through an astrological process that refers to the decadent. And that's all a bunch of fancy language, which basically means that the ancients took the circle of the sky, which they understood to be 360 degrees, and they, for convenience or otherwise, kind of broke that up into 10-degree sections, right? So that's 36 sections, and each one is represented by what's called a decan. That decan is representative of several different modes of knowledge, one of them being the tarot. And so if you look at the outer ring of this diagram, you'll see that the small cards of the tarot, from the 2s to the 10s. The ring inside of that, you'll see the date. The ring inside of that, you'll see the planet that is associated with that 10-degree period. The ring inside of that are the zodiac signs that rule over that period. And then the ring on the inside with the triangles are the sort of primordial elemental symbols. Fire, water, air, earth, and then the mutable, fixed, and cardinal version of those elements. Right? And so that's the real way that we're able to decide on what the decan is for the certain period of time, right? So when we choose the card of the day, we're not choosing for a random draw or a synchronistic selection with the intent of interpreting that for a personal reading. It's actually chosen the moment of your creation, the day you're born. So in this case, the card of the day is the 6 of Wands, And that will be the case until and through tomorrow, and changes on the 12th. And the 12th we move into the 7 associated with that. And what that refers to is, if you look at the bottom right of this diagram, you'll see the sign Leo, and then these 3 10-degree sections starting from August 1st all the way through August 22nd, right? Right now we're in the middle one, the 6 of Wands, which is the period of time between the 2nd and the 11th. And then we move into that other period. But that entire 3 section period of time, these 3 decans are all ruled by Leo. Okay, and so Leo is the major influence, the ruler of the period, and that is represented in the tarot by the card Strength. Sometimes in the thelemic system or the Golden Dawn system, it's referred to as Lust. And so this is used in a number of different ways when looking at certain kinds of readings. Like, for instance, to apply the card of the day with your birth card. All right, so what you would do is you would find your birth card on this wheel. Let's just say, for instance, you were born on January 1st, right? So we would want to go around the wheel until we find January 1st, which is on the top left section of this wheel. And it's in Capricorn, and that is the 3 of Pentacle. So you would take the 3 of Pentacle and associate that with the 6 of Wand, and you would have an idea of like a mini horoscope for that period of time of some of the energies that are already present in the environment. And so it's a matter of you leveraging that to your advantage or working against it and sort of maybe being held back by that. So by knowing the environment that you're in lets you maybe navigate that process a little bit better by utilizing energies that are more consistent with what you want, and letting you more effectively achieve your goals in that way. And so this particular card of the day today refers to, again, the 6 of Wands, and that is the idea of an individual who has had the experience and has grown to a degree and succeeded enough where they sort of command a respect. They don't seek it, but it's been earned, and others give it to them. And that respect allows them to be in a position of having the power to gather like-minded people, having a power to direct those people toward an end goal, to motivate like-minded people to start actually taking action and creating, as opposed to procrastination, thinking and planning without doing, right? So this is the person that has the power to kind of mobilize, and that's a very, very strong power to have. Now, that said, this refers to the energy that we are all under right now. And so that means that we are all kind of experiencing this state of karmic gathering. And this idea that we either are going to be on the side of being having an easy time in convincing others of our opinions and, gaining support. And some others might not, because they're on the other side of that and they are in the position of following. As far as I'm concerned, as long as you are being true to your convictions and your character and your true beliefs, whether you're leading or following doesn't matter, because what you are doing is that you're honoring your destiny, and there's no greater thing. That said, that is the card of the day. And we will be referring back to this many times throughout the night as we're doing readings. If you'd like, what we can do is take your birth card, identify it, throw it up on today's card of the day, and do a little mini sort of personal message on what to expect and the energies that you've been in, to maybe gain some insight into why, or what's been going on in the recent past. and that maybe will help you to inform your future in respect to how your decisions are changing that. So, you know, we've got a lot of up and down there. Looks like that Google is saying that I might be having a little bit of an issue with my bandwidth. I seem to be okay here. Although I do have a little bit of frames being dropped, but it doesn't seem to be too much of a problem. I might have had a little hiccup in my bandwidth. I live in the mountains of the Hudson Valley in upstate New York, and although I have a major internet provider as the company I give my money to each month, it's not really a reliable service compared to some other areas that are denser for various reasons. So that said, I may have some hiccuping during the stream, and I apologize for that. Now this deck I'm shuffling right now, this is a fun little oracle. And I would mean little by size, not by power. Let's see here. This is called the the Oracle of Radiant Light. The Oracle of the Radiant Light. And let me just jump to the list here, because I have the name. Yeah, Astrop Smith. I highly recommend you give this deck a look. If you are a fan of astrology, and you understand the connections between the planets and the signs, this is a really good oracle for you, because it's not the tarot system of tarot directly. However, they do share a knowledge system, which is the idea of the interplay between the planets and signs. So whether you're a tarot user, then you'll have an intuitive understanding of that. And if you're an astrology user, then you will absolutely be familiar with this language system. So this is a great oracle. It's kind of chunky. The cards, at least in this particular circumstance, they put out a few different versions, I believe. It's very glossy. You can see that light in it. They're very glossy. Which gives it a very sort of thick feel. They kind of have a nice feel, almost plasticky, but they bend really well as and you can see the size. I have relatively small hands, I would imagine. I guess they're normal sized hands, and yet they fit nicely. And to give you an idea here, actually, let's look at a couple of other decks. I think I have, yeah, here's a Hanson Roberts. The Hanson Roberts is a standard tarot deck size, I suppose, maybe a bit smaller. And so it has a very similar size to that, right? Let's look at it at I have a good idea. Let's look at a standard size Thoth. That's also pretty small. Everybody knows this deck, right? And so this is a good comparison. Okay. So that's roughly the size that we're talking about. And now that, it has a different number of cards. Again, it does not use the traditional tarot system, and so it's not a 78 card deck based on the majors or minors or small cards or anything like that. Instead, what it does is it uses planets and signs. And the original 7 planets and the 12 zodiac signs. So it's going to be 84 as opposed to 78. And you'll see what I mean in a second here. Let me go ahead and pull a few of these out. Okay. So what we have here is a couple of different cards to show you the sort of the system and how they apply it in these cards. What they do is they'll take in this particular circumstance, Mars, the planet, Saturn, the sun, and then they'll apply a sign to it, right? And so this is Mars in Gemini. This would be Saturn in Pisces. This would be the Sun in Gemini. Okay. And so what you can do is then, with your knowledge, understanding, or intuitive connection with those, you have some different ideas. Like, so for instance, Mars in Gemini. As we know, Gemini is a card that is very indicative, or a sign that's very indicative of two sides, and that when you apply Mars, which is a very direct kind of active energy, you have the idea of decision, right? So you're no longer indecisive, you're no longer between two sides, you've made the decision. And so that's a very good description, that one word description, which I'm generally speaking not a fan of one word oracle type decks. Obviously that word exists in order to get the creative juices flowing, so to speak. It's the muse for the intuitive part of you. So that's good, but you want to look at this from a couple of different angles here, right? What we have is action about an indecision that leads us to saying, okay, we're just gonna act. So another word for decision is motion. This card represents motion, right? And that's interesting that we have a chariot. And there's an individual on a chariot on the top of the card, which also represents, in a sense, motion, right? What we have here is this image of a wall, but there's an entrance in that wall, right? And so it's this idea of being able to pass through and to sort of get past the obvious symbolism of decision is like the interplay of you against the world, or you against them, or whatever circumstance, and your decisions and theirs are going to determine the overall outcome. So it's a great card, and that is Mars in Gemini. Saturn in Pisces. That's a very important combination as well. The Sun in Gemini. Versatility, right? Going back and forth, but it's exalted. It's in its perfected state. And so what you have is the ability to do many things. The jack of all trades. And so versatility, is a good symbol for that, and so on. So it's a great deck in that respect. And it really is, I use it for a couple of different reading types that I find it's more effective than tarot to just get it to the heart of certain. And then the tarot is really good to get to that granular level of some of the really, really small details. Okay, so let's go back to the topic list. There's a few themes that have been circulating through the past week that are hard to ignore. One of those themes is the idea of overburdening, overworking yourself, or allowing yourself to be overworked, or being overworked and it's out of your hands. But basically, that there's this overburden that seems to be unfair, that it's imbalanced, and so there's this overall energy pushing towards saying that it's time for there to be an equality. And that's going to occur, like it or not. So it's a matter of kind of going with it, since the energy's in the air anyway for that to happen, or against it and just kind of be dragged kicking and screaming. But the reality is that injustice is becoming very unpopular. And due to some of the advances in technology, due to some of the evolution of all of us as a whole, moving into understanding each other and that we need each other, and the beauty of our differences and the fact that those are trivial, the fact of having this complete intolerance, and that is not going to stop. That's going to continue to evolve. How that evolves is quite unpredictable, as these types of things are. But the one thing is for sure, we're coming out of the other end different than when we went in. and we don't have control of the motion of that. We're kind of being carried with it. So our best advice, I suppose, would be to know the energy, walk with the energy, and be a participant in it, as opposed to being dragged. So, our daily message for today, let's run over. This is a very interesting message. Let me get the cards set up here. Okay, so the sorry about that. Okay, we start with the Ten of Wands. And this was the energy that I was talking about. This overburdening and this idea that we, willingly or not, we're getting tired. Let's just put it that way. We're getting tired. Next, we're going to jump to the Lovers. And the Lovers is, of course, has many different meanings. Some of it is the obvious, and some of it isn't. And finally, we have our Ace of Pentacles. Okay. So, what we are looking at in today's message is a couple of very, very profound things. While I'm talking, I'm gonna pull them out of this. I have another deck that I use often as well. In fact, this is the deck that I use to do these readings. This is the Tarot of the Holy Light. This is a very profound deck with respect to the symbolism, and it's one that is really, really dense. And I use it for all of my daily readings and a majority of my client work, with the exception of certain circumstances where the decks or the type of reading requires a different kind of deck, then I'll use that instead. But I use this a lot. This and the Tarot of the Abyss by Anatorian, which is that's my actual favorite deck. But this deck, Tarot of the Holy Light, is a very beautiful deck, like I said, and it's also horribly obnoxious to work with. It has this sort of like, I love the texture, but the cards tend to sort of stick, and they're, I don't know, I love the quality of the bending, how they feel, but they're just a weird dimension where they don't really shuffle comfortably in either direction. And if you are in the position I'm in now, where you're attempting to leaf through them to find a card, they don't glide very easily. Which I kind of like in a lot of circumstances, but it'd be nice to have kind of a middle. But that's a tiny little, gripe. Okay. Okay, one more time. Ten of Wands. Or wait. Okay. Ten of Wands. Lovers, Ace of Pentacles. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, Ten of Wands. Okay, well, there's a... Wow. Yeah, and there it is, isn't it? There it is. The energy of the Ten of Wands just manifested itself as me attempting to find the Ten of Wands, which wound up as the... No. Okay, so then, Lovers. Let's see, I don't know, it's not big enough to... There's no easy way to kind of go through a deck, this deck. There's no... Okay, and then finally, there's the Ace of Pentacle? Yes, okay. Ace of Pentacle. Let me just, you know what, I'm just going to split it up into smaller chunks so that I can actually hold the thing. Ace of... Okay. So here we have, over there on the left is the Rider-Waite Smith, you know, the Pamela Coleman Smith, the traditional U.S. game systems Rider-Waite Tarot. And here on the desk we have the Tarot of the Holy Light, which I'll be referring back and forth to. But in both cases, you know, we have this idea of the overworked, overburdened. But there is also a reminder that is intentional, like meaning that we choose to continue to do that. This individual can drop those sticks anytime they feel like. But the work needs to be done. It's kind of one of those ideas. It's part of the personality. And so, and then we have the Lovers, which the Lovers is not always a card, and sometimes it is, and sometimes a cigar is a cigar. It's not always a card of relationships or love. What it does refer to is the idea of the point where two things meet on an energetic level. Remember that the majors, like the Lovers or, you know, any of the major arcana, the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Emperor, so forth, all these cards are not about the real world and people. They're the as above of the as above, so below. And so we're not talking about a person in love. What we would be talking about in that particular case would be the act of it, whether it's the lover or the beloved. Like, which side of that are you, and that dynamic. But what we're looking at here is a little bit different. What we're looking at here is the crossroads, meeting at the point between what you want and what you keep doing because of what other people want. The decisions you make because you need to look a certain way, or you need to, you know, be a member of some group or a club that you think you belong to. It's about making decisions that bring you joy also, instead of you just working to make everyone else happy so they'll like you. It doesn't work. And so at the end of the day, the message is this. You've already worked so hard already. You've already given so much already. You've already sacrificed so much. I know. And now you're being asked to give more. Like, more? I don't have more, sorry, but you are. And you're gonna do it. Because why? Because that's what you do. It's in you to do that. It's in your nature. But now you find yourself at a crossroad. You find yourself in the middle, staring at the point where those two things meet. between what you want, what makes you happy, which you've been suppressing, and what everyone else wants, and what you've been doing, and overworking yourself in this, in the 10. And so what do? You sit there and you stare like a statue and you don't move, and you're paralyzed by the fear. What if I do this decision that's going to make me happy? They're not going to like me anymore, or maybe they won't look at me the same, or I won't be enough. And it stops you from moving. There's a lack of motion. It's like, well, I think the word I used, I think is good. The word statue. And you need to recognize that at the minimum, it's okay to receive as much as you give. At the minimum, you deserve that. You've earned it. And the fact is that they're not going to look at you that way. How many times have you asked somebody for a favor or whatever, and they said no? Do you hate them? Of course not. It doesn't even dawn on, like, okay, all right, man, I'll ask somebody else, or I'll do it myself, or I appreciate it, or whatever. You know, it's never as bad as we think. And yet, with us, we give, and we won't take, because then people won't think that I'm worthy or I'm enough. And that's not true. And you have a right to be happy. You have a right to receive as much as you give. And that's today's daily message. I think it's a very important message for everyone. I hope you take that to heart. And if you're on the other side of this coin, and you're the one overworking people, and you're the one putting people in a position to be unsure about taking their own steps toward self-realization, you do have the opportunity to help that along. You could say, you know what, let me grab a couple of those from you, and let's carry that bundle together. And if you bump into somebody staring at the ground like a statue, not knowing which way to go because they're confused about what people will think, ask that person, what do you think? What do you want? Let's walk that together and see what it's like. And you can participate in that with them, and together you may discover something that you hadn't even considered. But what you will do at the minimum is uplift that person and uplift the world in the meantime. So why not? Jump back to today's topics. We've got a couple of different messages that I wanted to go over today. I did them as short videos. If you'd like, you can go to my channel videos, and you'll see today the fur baby message, the birthday message, the mind, body, and soul message, the daily message, which I go through there as well. And I'm not sure as far as the strength of the stream. Like, again, I seem to be doing okay in OBS. But Google then tells me that it's not receiving any video to maintain a smooth stream. And I'm sending at least 5,000, 4,500 to 5,000. Which should be, frankly, more than enough. I'm on a... scale down 720. I don't know. I'm not sure of the quality. I may wind up actually just popping off and then popping back on in a little while. We'll see maybe if we have any traction. later on. I don't know. It's possible. Sure. So, we have a lot of pets stuff going on this week too that seems to be centered around some of the similar energy here. At least within the group setting, like when you've got multiple pets. You know, it seems like we're all reacting to the same energy in different ways, and to see how it manifests in our pets is really fun. Good stuff, thankfully. And some of the stuff that's not the best is, at least again, having that prior knowledge doesn't hurt, and making it potentially a little easier to manage. Okay. So as far as in the news right now, there's so much going on that you don't even really know where to begin, right? I mean, what's going on with politics in the United States, what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. There's a lot of separation in the world right now. There's a lot of us and them. There's a lot of theys, and there's a lot of... And you know, this kind of idea is... it's the worst part of Leo. You're powerful. You are powerful. You don't need to prove it. Let me zoom in. You are powerful. You don't need to remind everybody all the time by being loud and all this. Be what you are. Be who you are. Be strong and authentic. And be solid in that. And it will be noticed. And you won't have to go through this nonsense of look at me and create drama in order to get that attention. It's not sustainable. And it really will ultimately, at the end of the day, winds up costing. Alrighty, well, I'm going to jump off for a little bit, and I'll be back in a while. I want to make sure that I'm seeing the same thing here that I am in YouTube, because this looks like the stream is doing just fine. Whereas that does not seem to be the case on YouTube. And so I need to take a look at why that is and try to fix that. It seems to be a little bit of a dance when, you know, trying to figure out how the proper way to set up OBS for your computer. You know, there's no sort of surefire set way. Depends on your internet provider, depends on the computer that you're using, and a couple of other factors. And so it's I haven't really figured it out yet, I guess. Or I have, and I just don't know it because I'm seeing messages from YouTube that it's not getting any video at all. So I'm not sure what that means. I guess we'll find out when I watch the video back. Alright. All streaming. Would it affect my bandwidth negatively to the point that it would affect the stream, or would I be able to do that? So let's find out. see. This will let me know if it's me or not, because the bandwidth obviously is going to be part of the factor. My CPU is only at 22%, and that's all. I got a OBS and a web browser. That's all I'm running. Okay. Test this here and see what are we dealing with. Like, how far is the delay? Right now I have it set for normal latency, and I'm not 100% sure what that means with respect to how much actual time. I understand that it's in the middle between high and low, requires some processing, so we'll see. But, okay, it looks like I'm actually might be pretty far behind, maybe like a minute. Okay, there was just a skip there too, that was pretty... Okay. Yeah, now I'm showing 0K. Alright, now I'm back up to 9,000, 5,000, 4, which is funny because I have it set to constant stream, not variable. Anyway, so, Okay. Alright. And now I'm getting that, say YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. A little bit, and then I'll be back, probably, I don't know, 10:30, something along those lines. We'll see how the evening progresses. Thank you to everyone who did happen to pop in, and if I look back and see that there were a lot of issues, I apologize for that. I'm just starting to work this thing out, and you know, it seems to be a work in progress. So we'll see. I will let you know. But thank you so much for popping in, and we'll see you tonight. And another little bit, maybe 10:30, I imagine. And I usually start streaming anytime after midnight, at least for a couple